GearNetwork.com.
The following is a presentation of the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I believe it's a big challenge for our building to keep things in perspective and to, if we're going to get addicted to anything, let's get addicted to the process.
And with that, we welcome you to Trust the Podcast, powered by Better Life Than Dead on the Gear Radio Network. This is episode 122. That's 122 for those of you who don't know how to count. The Buffalo Bills Buffalo Bills versus the Miami Dolphins. My apologies. You can hear us on BetterLiveThanDead.com, GearNetwork.com, and wherever else you listen to podcasts. Make sure to hit that subscribe button as well to stay up to date on the latest podcast. I am Ryan Wolfe at WolfeBLTD. Joining me on the phone now. John is off for the week. The Christmas holiday coming up has got this man busier than busy can be. So pinch hitting again for, I think, the third podcast in a row is Brayton Wilson at Brayton J. Wilson on Twitter. But also, it's Brayton's birthday today. Happy birthday, buddy. Thanks for joining the podcast on your special little day.
Oh, shucks. Thanks very much. I'm more than happy to join you at any occasion. And, third time will hopefully be another charm for the Bills. As the last two we've done, they've resulted in wins. So let's keep it rolling, baby.
And we're going to run down it today because there's a lot of, look at the game was good, the game was bad, the game was indifferent from time to time to time. It drives you crazy, then it drives you mad, then you're thrilled when the Bills win. So we're going to go through all of that. But Brayton, for the second straight week, Buffalo avenged an earlier season loss. This time it was a 32-29 victory over the aforementioned Miami Dolphins. Buffalo improves to 11-3 on the season, marking the franchise's third straight season with 11-plus wins. Who would have thunk that was possible just a few years ago? The last time this happened was when Buffalo won 11-plus games from 1990 to 1993, the four consecutive Super Bowl appearance seasons. Brayton, this also is Buffalo's fifth straight win, third straight win in 3 weeks over a divisional opponent. Also, interesting, it's their fifth non-Sunday victory this season, the most by an NFL team since Denver had 5 in 2005. But the most important thing about Saturday, Buffalo clinched a playoff berth for the fifth time in 6 seasons under head coach Sean McDermott. He's the only coach to lead the Bills to the playoffs more times. I should rephrase that. The only coach to lead the Bills to the playoffs more times is Marv Levy, who has done it 8. Isn't it crazy, Brayton, to think that Sean McDermott has led the Bills to the playoffs 5 out of 6 years, and that 6th year that he didn't lead the Bills to the playoffs was the year that they drafted Josh Allen. So pretty much every season in Buffalo for Sean McDermott has been a victory, been a pretty damn good season, I would have to say.
Yeah, no, I would have to say so myself. You know, the first year he comes in, I don't think there were a lot of expectations surrounding McDermott or what he was able to do, but he exceeded everybody's expectations by taking a team that really kind of had no business making the playoffs. And mind you, yes, they backed into a playoff spot with some help from Andy Dalton and the Bengals, but they still managed to get into the playoffs and make an appearance and break the playoff drought. They draft Josh Allen. And the first year, Josh Allen, kind of as expected, a growth developmental type of year. He does also get hurt in the middle of that year, which didn't help. But in the end, he showed a lot of promise towards the second half of the season. And I think it gave a lot of Bills fans that glimmer of hope saying, hey, we might have something here in this quarterback in Josh Allen, who a lot of people, including myself, I'll raise my hand, had a lot of doubts of when he was coming out of Wyoming and entering his draft year. So, and then from there, 4 straight playoff appearances. I mean, I don't know if the Bills could have drawn it up any better than that. I don't know if Brandon Beane, McDermott could have drawn anything up better than how everything's gone, maybe other than a Super Bowl win. But, you know, hopefully that'll be the case this year for many Bills fans. And I think a lot of people around here are hoping that as well. But certainly, you know, things are looking up. They're continuing to look up. And I think a lot of people around the NFL see this Buffalo Bills team as being a contender for many, many years to come.
And jumping into our 3 big things now, brought to you by PuckLuck.com. We'll start off with Josh Allen, but first, before we go, we always got to let you know, PuckLuck.com is your one-stop resource for all of your NHL sports betting action. Puck Luck provides win percentages and score projections for each and every National Hockey League game to tilt the ice in your favor. Not sure what to bet or just stuck in a rut? Not to worry. Puck Luck also provides expert picks to get the puck bouncing your way. Please note, though, puckluck.com, no way affiliated with the National Hockey League, its teams, or the NHLPA. Puckluck.com provides data related to gambling and cannot guarantee the success of any suggested or related wagers. As always, please gamble responsibly. Now, Brayton, picking up with Josh Allen on our first of the three big things, running down the offensive stats, Allen was electric on Saturday night. 25 of 40 passing, 304 passing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns with 10 rushes for 70 yards. Allen tallied his 171st career touchdown, tying in with Dan Marino for the most total touchdowns in a player's first 5 seasons. After Saturday's game, Allen has now also thrown a touchdown to 26 different players in his career. With his acrobatic Superman, I almost said Spider-Man, which would have been painfully incorrect, his Superman-esque successful 2-point conversion on Saturday, Allen becomes the first Buffalo player with 4 successful 2-point PATs. Only the 4th quarterback in NFL history with 4 career 2 PATs, 4 successful 2-point PATs, joining Kerry Collins, Dante Culpepper, and Steve McNair, a pretty good group there. It's also his 3rd career game with 300-plus passing yards and 75-plus rushing yards, joining Michael Vick and Russell Wilson as the only players with 3 of these types of performances in a game. Allen moved to 15th in franchise history with 236 career points. He is 3 points behind Mike Mayer, who has 239 points in 14th, and 12 behind Cookie Gilchrist, who is in 13th with 248 points. It does not stop there, Brayton. There's more. 11th career fourth quarter comeback and 3rd fourth quarter comeback this season for Allen. His 11 career fourth quarter comebacks ranked 3rd in franchise history behind Joe Ferguson with 19 and Jim Kelly with 21. It's his 50th regular season win as a starter, 3rd most by a Bills quarterback. Allen is 3rd behind Joe Ferguson, who has 77, and Jim Kelly, who's 1st with 101. Also, Josh Allen became the 2nd quarterback in NFL history with 50-plus wins and 130-plus passing touchdowns over their first 5 seasons, joining Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs. Yes, I know Mahomes did not play his first season, which makes it even more impressive, but still, who gives a damn? Josh Allen has also thrown at least 2 touchdown passes in each of his 10 career games against the Dolphins. Elias Sports confirmed that this ties Dan Marino for the longest streak of games with multiple touchdown passes versus an opponent at any point in a player's career. He had 10 straight games of 2 or more touchdown passes versus the Jets from 1991 to 1997. Also, a weird stat for you, Brayton. I'm running out of gas here, but there's so much to Josh Allen stuff to talk about. It's insane. Weird stat. Allen threw a career high 4 passing touchdowns to running backs and tight ends versus Miami on Saturday. Josh Allen finishes the season with a 5 touchdown to 0 interception ratio versus Miami when it comes to passing to running backs or tight ends. But Allen has only 4 touchdowns and 3 interceptions targeting running backs and tight ends against all other opponents this season. Also, something I came across this morning, thanks to the wonderful Bills PR. Josh Allen tallied 304 passing yards, 77 rushing yards, and 4 passing touchdowns on Saturday night. Allen's performance marked one of only 3 games all time with 300-plus passing yards, 75-plus rushing yards, and 4-plus passing touchdowns, joining Michael Vick and Cam Newton, who have only done that. So that's pretty cool as well. Brayton, you were there on Saturday.
Yeah.
Saturday night. I was getting the text messages. They were a lot of fun. I was really enjoying it. What was the atmosphere like on Saturday night?
Well, I mean, it was certainly a fun night. I mean, the belief of what the weather was going to be and just the elements that were at play this time around compared to when the Bills were in Miami to play the Dolphins back in week 3. I mean, it was a good, fun time, aside from people being stupid and throwing snowballs, which, whatever, it is what it is.
That was kind of funny.
Yeah, I mean, sure. Yeah, it was funny. But when you're in the crowd and, you see people getting hit down on the sidelines or nearly getting hit or, it's just, and the ice and the snow that was there, maybe it wasn't as like ice packed or whatever, but it was packed down because people were going into the stands for the games and, they were just grabbing them off the floor or off the concrete ground or off the bench there where people were sitting and trying to throw snowballs at people. And, whatever, it is what it is. Aside from that, though, the atmosphere was absolutely electric. Fans were really into it. And, they were loving the fact, especially when the snow did start to fall in the fourth quarter on the Bills' final drive there, or just after they had tied the game. I mean, it just really amped things up, and you could see the Bills fed off that energy. The Dolphins had one more drive that they were stymied on, forced to punt away, and then the Bills' offense for the rest of that game, they chewed away the rest of that clock in order to secure the victory. And you could tell they were feeding off the people, they were feeding off the energy that the environment was kind of building up to and everything like that. But I mean, it was a phenomenal game overall. Josh Allen looked dialed in for a good portion of the game. The whole team kind of sagged in the third quarter into the fourth quarter, and it wasn't just Allen, it was just everybody. You know, the defense wasn't necessarily reading coverages right. They weren't able to kind of contain the Dolphins a little bit, but then something clicked for them when the Bills got on their drive to tie the game at 29. You know, they did just enough to be able to win that football game in the end. But overall, I mean, from start to finish, it was one of the better games of the year, and the Bills did everything they could to get themselves a much-needed victory and not only clinch themselves the playoff spot, but also get themselves that much closer to clinching the division for a third straight year.
Well, and Brayton, before we move on to more of the offense, I'll just dump this in here because it does feel right. Mother Nature definitely had the assist on Saturday. I'm sorry. The going into the game, the hot topic was, when's the weather going to show up? When's it going to show up? And it kept building to finally that bubble popped in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned. But it seemed clear that Miami was not ready for the snow's arrival. The timing felt right after Buffalo's offense just literally did not show up in the third quarter. They had 4 straight drives ending in a punt. A fifth drive ended with a strip sack. But then Buffalo scored a touchdown, a 2-point conversion with 9:02 left, then took over the final 5 minutes and 56 seconds of the game with a methodical 15-play, 86-yard drive that set up Tyler Bass's game-winning field goal, which we'll talk about a little more here in a moment. But tight end Dawson Knox, another big game. He continues to, I don't want to say have like a resurgence late in the season, but it seems like Ken Dorsey's finding ways to get Dawson Knox more involved, which is helping open up the offense as well. Dawson Knox had 6 receptions on 8 targets for 98 yards and a touchdown. All 18 of Knox's touchdown receptions have come from Josh Allen, which moves them to 10th all-time by themselves in franchise history for most touchdowns by a quarterback-receiver combo. His 18th career touchdown catch also pushes Knox into sole possession of 3rd most touchdown receptions in a career by a Bills tight end, trailing only Jay Remersma, who has 20, and Pete Metzelaars, who has 25. Big game on Saturday as well for James Cook and Quentin Morris. James Cook had 5 rushes for 34 yards and 2 receptions on 3 targets for 5 yards and a receiving touchdown. Tight end Quentin Morris had 1 reception and 1 target for 14 yards and 1 touchdown. Both players recorded their first career receiving touchdown on Saturday. Pretty cool to watch, but a fun stat that was pointed out. Morris's touchdown was his first touchdown since catching a 26-yard touchdown from Bowling Green quarterback Grant Loy on November 19th, 2019, a gap of 1,124 days between touchdown catches. So I'm sure Morris was pretty thrilled to record that touchdown. And also, speaking of first touchdowns, Brayton, running back Nyheim Hines had 1 reception on 1 target for 10 yards and a touchdown. It was his first touchdown as a member of the Buffalo Bills. So maybe, just maybe, he's starting to get his feet wet in the offense and getting comfortable, because it seems like his ability to be dynamic out of the backfield is something the Buffalo Bills can really I forgot the word I was going to use. They can gain an advantage from that for sure.
Yeah. No, and I mean, it's nice to see some of these depth players starting to really contribute. And yeah, you know, you'd love to see Stephon Diggs and Gabriel Davis coming up with these big catches and putting up these big numbers. I mean, fantasy-wise, I would have loved it for Stephon Diggs, but aside from that, you know, it's nice to see Quentin Morris get involved. It's nice to see Dawson Knox once again get involved. It's nice to see Isaiah McKenzie getting more targets and the Bills continuing to have confidence in him even after a so-so game last week. And as you mentioned, it's nice to see Nyheim Hines finally getting the chance to really get involved in the offense and get a touchdown for once. You know, it's just one of those things where it's just like you see these other utility pieces being used and you see these other pieces getting the ball and being effective. You know, that's just a good offense noticing when, you know, a defense is doing a really good job covering your top targets. That's when you really need to start trying to utilize and play call for your other targets and being able to get themselves get them the ball to be able to move the football down the field. So, it was nice to see Nyheim Hines get that touchdown, but not only that, but also become more a part of the offense, as you mentioned, just being utilized more and understanding the playbook a little bit more since coming over from Indianapolis. So, yeah, no, it's going to be interesting. It's going to be interesting to see how things play out in the next few weeks leading up to the playoffs, because, I mean, obviously if the Bills went out, they get the number one seed and you get that first round bye. And maybe you get a little help in the mix there. Maybe you beat the Bengals and then the Chiefs lose to Seattle or somebody that they face coming up here.
I mean, they almost lost to the Texans. They looked very human.
They almost did. I mean, the Cowboys almost lost to the Texans and they lost to the Jaguars as well. So, it'll be interesting to see how things kind of play out here going forward with this Bills team and how they utilize all their weapons. Because, if you're able to spread the wealth a little bit and you're able to help generate more action offensively with more weapons on the field come playoff time, you're kind of going to leave teams second guessing where the ball's going to go. Is it going to go to Diggs? Is it going to go to McKenzie? Is it going to go to Hines? Is it going to go to James Cook out of the backfield? Is it going to go to Singletary? Is it going to go to Quentin Morris? Is it going to go to Cole Beasley? I mean, Cole Beasley's back in the picture. John Brown's also back in the picture too. So the more options and the more that they can spread the ball around come playoff time and kind of leave those opposing defenses second guessing, honestly, it's probably going to be the better for the team.
And you did mention Cole Beasley. He did get the call up from the practice squad prior to Saturday's game as expected. He had one reception on one target for 9 yards, and the crowd literally went wild, which good for them. But wrapping up the defense, moving on to our second of the three big things real quick. Not a whole lot to discuss here, but there are a few things we can mention. First off, defensive end Shaq Lawson had a very big game on Saturday. He recorded 2 total tackles, 1 solo tackle. He had a sack, a pass deflection, a quarterback hit, and a forced fumble. He has now recorded a sack in back-to-back weeks and now has 3.5 sacks on the season. Lawson's forced fumble was his first since 2020 when he was a member of the Miami Dolphins. Also, linebacker Matt Milano and defensive tackle Daquan Jones both recorded a half sack on the same sack. How cute. Deeper into the win, our third of the three big things here, Brayton. It's not always Josh Allen making history here. Even Sean McDermott, the coach, can make history as well. He's the 11th coach in NFL history to make the playoffs in 5 or more of their first 6 seasons as a head coach, joining Andy Reid, John Harbaugh, John Madden, Mike Holmgren, John Robinson, Paul Brown, Dennis Green, George Seifert, and Bill Cowher. A very good group to be a part of, for sure. Also, the red zone. The first game the Buffalo Bills played against Miami, Brayton, they were 2 for 4 in the red zone. They were unable to. They dominated the game. They were being dominated by the keeper. They dominated the game, but were not able to punch it in when it mattered. That was not the case on Saturday. Buffalo went 4 for 5 with 4 touchdowns and 1 field goal. Also, Miami was 1 for 3 on Saturday with 1 touchdown and 2 field goals. So again, that really was where the game ended up breaking down, was that Buffalo was able to tighten up in the red zone, force field goals, whereas Buffalo was able to offensively take advantage of the Dolphins and score seemingly at will, which was great.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it is really nice to see just the way that this offense, when they do click the way they have, and we've seen it in the past. We've seen the way that the offense goes down the field and just, you need a touchdown and it's just like, yep, we're on it. We're going to go get that touchdown right now. We saw it with the Patriots game last year, even though, it was Brian Dable still as the offensive coordinator, but even this year, the game against Tennessee, the game against the Rams, the game for the first half, at least against the Packers, the game against the Steelers. And I mean, even, yes, as you said, like this game, to see the offense being able to just command things and being able to just say, you know what, we're going to take things into our own hands. We're going to control the game again. And we're going to go put up 7 points, or, oh, hey, we need to kill the time on the clock to get it down to the 2-minute warning or the dying seconds. We're going to go do that. We're going to choose 7 minutes off the clock. We're just going to do it by short dink and dunk plays, short runs or whatever. And they seem like they have maybe some of the best control that they had in some time. The past few games certainly is one of those where, okay, they understand the situation. Their game management seems to be so much more better, and it's starting to really show. And I think that's also really important to solidify before heading into the playoffs with 3 weeks left to go, is making sure that everything's kind of all nice and sync and everyone's on the same page for when you do get to the playoffs. And you're trying to run for a Super Bowl. Everything's clicking and everything's going well for you, and hopefully it leads to success.
And continuing to run down some fun stats from Saturday, Tyler Bass was 3 for 3 on extra points, 1 for 1 on field goals, the game-winning kick. He's the second kicker this season to have multiple walk-off field goals as time expired, joining Green Bay kicker Mason Crosby. Bass is also the first player in team history with 3 120-plus point seasons. He had 141 in 2020, 135 in 2021, and currently has 121 in 2022. Interesting here as well, Brayton. Buffalo has won 5 straight games, despite not recording an interception in any of those games. They're the second team in NFL history with such a streak, when Dallas did it when they went 6-0 between October 30th, 2016 and December 1st, 2016. So it's almost like it's shifting. The Buffalo Bills focus, or whatever it may be, is, as we talked about with all the injuries and ineffectiveness in some parts on defense, we look at it, and right now we see that the Buffalo Bills defense, is not doing as much as they did in the past. But that doesn't matter because they're still winning games, and that's a crazy stat. It's interesting to me because I see it and I'm like, they're getting, like PFF pointed out today, and again, Sam Monson from Pro Football Focus, again, you say, PFF is what it is, but you always take these things into consideration when you're talking about or trying to figure things out with the Buffalo Bills or with anybody. He mentions that Buffalo's blitz rate as a defense has ticked up noticeably without Von Miller in the lineup, but their pressure rate has still gone down. So again, they're not getting as much pressure as one would expect because Von Miller's out. So it's, someone's got to step into those shoes, and it's very difficult to. But then also their offensive line has been slowly sliding down the offensive line ranks over at PFF, which is understandable as well because they can't stay healthy there, which again, it's what we're going to talk about here shortly. But still, they continue to deal with adversity relatively well. Like, it was pointed out on Twitter, and I don't remember who said it. I do apologize. But Buffalo has won 5 straight games, all while Josh Allen has been rehabbing an elbow injury, a UCL sprain. So it's like we continue to look at this team and say to ourselves, we talk about all these problems. We point out all these things. You and I, Brayton, or myself and John, when we talk on the podcast every week, we try to flip over the rocks, if you will, and find the ugly bottom side to figure out where the Bills can get better. But then we always lead the podcast with, well, they're 11-3. Okay. So how often can we talk about the negative while pointing out the positive? But it's almost like they're defying statistics sometimes when it's like, oh yeah, they're not getting a lot of sacks. They're not getting any interceptions, but they're still able to stop teams with their scheme, and they're still able to win games with their offense. So go Bills. It's crazy. It's crazy to me.
Yeah, no, I mean, it certainly is when you look at the defense, because, the defense has been perfect this year. They started out really well this year, looking like the number one unit. Some injuries certainly haven't helped. Losing Micah Hyde back there is a huge, huge loss. And then, on Thanksgiving, losing Von Miller to the pass rush is also huge. But that's where you say, okay, which players depth-wise are going to step up and are going to be able to contribute without the number one guy, without the number two guy. And we've seen that, Christian Benford is a perfect example. Without Tre'Davious White to start the year, it was Dane Jackson and either him or Kaiir Elam. Kaiir Elam, while he's still a rookie, hasn't necessarily proven to be the type of talent that I think the Bills drafted him to be. But Christian Benford came in as not even I don't even remember where Villanova is. They're not in the top tier of programs. They're not even, I think, FBS or whatever. But still, like he came in and he proved, like, okay, he's got the talent, he's got the capabilities to be able to step in and be a suitable cornerback number 2 in the time that we're waiting for Tre'Davious White to come back. Obviously, he did his job. Now he's injured again, and he's rehabbing, and hopefully he'll be back to be able to provide a little more depth to the corner position, while Kaiir Elam is also still there, and he's still coming along and developing. We've also seen the defensive line with Gregory Rousseau and with Boogie Basham and with AJ Epinesa. These guys are starting to step up. They're starting to come up, and they're starting to really play well without the veteran presence of Von Miller and doing their job. And the only position that I kind of still have concerns about is at safety, because yes, while we see DeMar Hamlin do a really nice job, especially when he comes up and blitzes or when he is, past the line of scrimmage, does a really nice job of wrapping up guys and playing really well. In coverage, he's really struggled. So, there's been some positives, there's been some negatives. Injuries certainly don't help, but the defense seems to be doing just enough when they need to the most to be able to keep the team in the game and to keep drives alive for the Bills and keep games alive for them. And I think it really showed on Saturday when right after the Bills had tied the game, the Dolphins had that big drive to try and go back down the field and retake the lead, and the Bills defense came up huge, gave the Buffalo offense the ball back, and then that's when Josh Allen and company just said, you know what, we got 5 minutes and 53 seconds left on the clock. Let's just try to chew as much time off the clock and let's end this game as quick as we can. And that's what they did. They went down, they ended the game, and Bills win and clinch a playoff berth, and now they're 1 win away from the AFC. So certainly there's a lot to be looking up to here going forward.
I don't disagree. There's a lot for sure. And you kind of just made my head spin there for a second, which is why.
Sorry.
It's okay, which is why my response was a little delayed. One more thing I want to point out before we take a quick commercial break here. Home cooking has been very well for the Buffalo Bills. They're 22-5 at home since 2020, including the playoffs, as well as a 10-1 mark in home games played in December or later. As mentioned, Brayton, snowballs were a nice touch until the referees delayed the game and threatened fans with a 15-yard penalty against the Bills. I did get asked this week at my job. I'm based out of Indianapolis, as some of you may know. So everyone got a kick out of the snowballs, and I said, look, I don't get the anger about the snowballs because it's not the worst thing the Bills fans have thrown on the field. And I said, I cannot confirm nor deny because this is work and it will probably be an HR violation, but do a Google search. And I got a couple hearty laughs out of that one. So maybe they know. Well, we already know that that Bills fans are, I don't know, lit, insane, crazy, a blast, all the above. Either way, it was not surprising to see that behavior for better or for worse. But
well, I mean, listen, there is nothing in the rule book that says you can't throw a snowball or you can't throw a.
There's nothing in the rule book that says a dog can't play basketball.
Right.
I get it.
If only Airbud could actually play this.
Also, Josh Allen has got that BDE, that big dog energy, my man. He is on that one play, real quick before we go to commercial, that one play where he ran for, 44 yards and kind of started to high step. I'm like, that is what my dog looks like if my dog gets let out of the house and then without a leash. I'm like, that's how my dog runs around the yard.
He's got a bunch of little dogs in his chest.
He's like, I'm free. Oh, crap, they got me. That's exactly what my dog does. But we're going to take a quick commercial break. I've noticed lately, too, I've been using butt as a crutch a lot at my job. I got to stop that because it's annoying. So I do apologize. We'll take a quick break and be back with more Trust the Podcast right after this here on the Gear Radio Network.
1, 2, 3, 4.
And we're back here on Trust the Podcast, as promised, Brayton, and all of you listeners out there in podcast land. It's our look ahead. We always start this off with the injury update for the Buffalo Bills. Ryan Bates, Jordan Phillips both missed the game. Bates had an ankle injury and Phillips had a shoulder injury. Good news is that they, let me scroll down here to my news. They were practicing today. Bates was practicing. Jordan Phillips was practicing. Matt Milano was practicing, who's been nursing a knee injury and kind of looked a little sluggish on the field. So that's good news for the Buffalo Bills offensive line that's beat up, and it brings me to my next point here. Mitch Morse, center, left the game with a head injury, later diagnosed with a concussion. I believe he has 6 or 7 diagnosed concussions at this point. Not good. He's going to be out for some time, but in the National Football League, Mitch Morse's his loss is big, and I think we felt that in the third quarter. I think that was there was not a lot of continuity, not a lot of flow on the offensive line either. I believe Greg Van Roten was the one who ended up stepping up and being the center, which, again, I don't even know if he does that, but he might have just been the next man up. But the big news out of Buffalo this week, which may not be super huge news to the rest of the National Football League, but from what we know, offensive lineman Ike Butker was activated to the 53-man roster from the physically unable to perform list. He tore his Achilles last season in Week 16. His 21-day window to return to the lineup was coming to a close. So to have him back in the lineup and to have Ryan Bates back in the lineup on Saturday would be huge for the Buffalo Bills, especially with the loss of Mitch Morse, which I was going to say was going to bring us to our look ahead for the game on Saturday, but I want to do a quick playoff. This one's for John. Actually, hold on. Let me do my best impression of the owner of the Denver Broncos. This one's for John. Okay, so going to reset this page here real fast and looking at the playoffs right now. If the season were to end today, excuse me, which we know it does not, but if it did, the Buffalo Bills, 1 seed, 11-3. They hold a tiebreaker over the Kansas City Chiefs, who are also 11-3. The 3 seed would be the Cincinnati Bengals at 10-4, who have kind of come on as of late. Speaking of teams who have sucked a bunch of nails, or I don't know a good saying without cursing, they've sucked ass. I'll just put it that way. The 7-7 Tennessee Titans, they are the 4 seed for better or for worse. The 3 wild cards, the Baltimore Ravens at 9-5, the Los Angeles Chargers at 8-6, and the Miami Dolphins at 8-6 as well. The AFC wild card is going to be wild, I think, but because you've got the Raiders, who are just kind of lingering after that big win on Saturday. You've got the Jacksonville Jaguars lingering at 6-8 after that big win on Saturday. The Jets at 7-7, and the Patriots at 7-7 as well. I would normally say, Brayton, as you know from the past, hey, if the season ended today, the Buffalo Bills would play Team X. But guess what? If it ended today, they wouldn't be playing anybody because they would have the one bye in the AFC. That's how good they've been this year. But
that's right.
With that being said, let's roll on over to Week 16. The Buffalo Bills at the Chicago Bears. The Bears. Saturday, December 24th at 1 p.m. on CBS. Yes, again, the season of weird game days continues. The Buffalo Bills play on Saturday because Sunday is Christmas. Whether you celebrate or not, the NFL says we're not going to play a lot of games on Christmas. We're going to do them all on Saturday. So we're doing it on Saturday. The interesting thing about this one, there is what they're reporting as a generational winter storm coming across the Midwest, hitting Chicago Thursday into Friday, and then coming to Buffalo, hitting Saturday into Sunday or Friday into Sunday. I don't know. Either way, it's apparently supposed to be real windy, real cold, real snowy. We'll see how that affects the game on Saturday. But Chicago, 3-11, they're 4th in the NFC North. Really, the one guy we got to talk about, Brayton, quarterback Justin Fields. They have unlocked a cheat code with quarterback Justin Fields. He has only 2,048 passing yards, 15 touches, 10 picks, but he has exactly 1,000 rushing yards and 8 rushing touchdowns. The third quarterback in NFL history with 1,000+ rushing yards in a season, joining Michael Vick and Lamar Jackson. What do the Buffalo Bills have to do on Saturday, Brayton, to stop Justin Fields and force him to become a pocket passer?
It certainly is really interesting to see how they're going to try to defend Justin Fields. I mean, they did a decent job of defending a similar quarterback, Lamar Jackson, back in Week 4 when they were in Baltimore to take on the Ravens. And he made, I have to look up the stats from that game to see how much they limited him. But then again, it also was very rainy conditions that game. And this time around, it's going to be more snowy. And, it's interesting because it seems like the Bills always do a really nice job of game planning for these quarterbacks that are very mobile, that can run, that can break free and escape the pocket and run for these big chunk yards and get first downs or score touchdowns and whatever. It seems like they always find a way to game plan for those type of players really, really well. And I know, earlier this year, I think they used Tavon Austin to be able to be that Lamar Jackson type of guy. And I know in the past they've used other guys. I think they've used like Isaiah McKenzie and Ray McLeod and some of these young speed guys that are wide receivers or whatever, then, practicing to be quarterbacks and going up against the defense, simulating these young guys that can run it really well and be shifty. And I think that's kind of how they have to play it out this week when they're preparing for Justin Fields. And Justin Fields, I mean, he's the fourth quarterback to run for over 1,000 yards in a season. I mean, he's having an incredible year, not just, with his arm, he's still progressing and he's still developing that way. But certainly on his feet, he's become a dynamic quarterback in that stance, even though the team surrounding him hasn't really played all that well. So, yeah, no, as long as they can contain Justin Fields and as long as they can keep him from breaking free and running for these incredible long plays, his arm isn't necessarily the greatest, but you do all you can to limit him and you do what you can to move the ball against a really porous Bears defense, the defense that has been riddled not only with injuries, but also by trades because they traded away Roquan Smith, who was arguably their best defensive player. So as long as the offense can continue to play well and they do enough to contain the defense, maybe in some more inclement weather conditions, I think the Bills will be just fine.
Yeah, I've got the Bills winning probably big in this one. I mean, I have to think that that Justin Fields will probably do Justin Fields stuff, but I think that I'm going to say 31-10 Bills, depending on the weather. But that's where I'm going. 31-10 Bills over the Bears.
I'll say, depending on the weather. I'm going to say the weather will play a factor. Maybe I'll say 24-10 Bills win.
ESPN Analytics matchup predictor has 81% of America picking Buffalo, 18.8% picking the Bears, and 0.2 or 0.2 makes more sense percent picking a tie. Which, what's wrong with you? But Brayton, I'm gonna wrap this bad boy up because I think my dog's got to go take a peep. So, with that being said, I'm Ryan Wolfe at Wolfe BLTD. Brayton is at Brayton J Wilson on Twitter. We are Trust the Podcast.
You're not.
Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. We'll catch you same time, same place next week. As always, happy birthday, Brayton.
Thank you.
And as always, go Bills.
Go Bills.
The preceding presentation has been brought to you by the Gear Network.